Did parent company of the Matrix franchise, Warner Brothers, really sabotage The Matrix 4 for them to gain full ownership rights of the IP? Well, co-owner Village Roadshow thinks this is the case, and they have filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers over their handling of The Matrix Resurrections. Let's talk about this crazy story. What's going on, Matrix fans? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, the Viking. Make sure you give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for a brand new video every single day. In The Matrix Resurrections, game developer Thomas Anderson has created 3 Matrix games, huge hits. He is called to the office of his boss, Smith. Smith tells him that the parent company of the franchise, Warner Brothers, wants him to make a 4th Matrix game. Thomas Anderson does not. He basically refuses. But Smith tells him they will make a Matrix 4 with or without you. In real life, the Wachowski sisters were done after the 3rd Matrix film. But for years, Warner Brothers begged them to do another movie. Lana Wachowski has said that Warner Brothers would come to her house with a truckload full of money and back it into her front garden, because they wanted that box office money. And she refused time and time again, until eventually she felt the need to come back to the franchise that she created with her sister. But, just like Thomas Anderson, Warner Brothers would have made another Matrix movie with or without the Wachowskis, with or without Thomas Anderson, because they are the parent company of that franchise. Back in 2017, Warner Brothers wanted to move forward with a Matrix movie starring Michael B. Jordan, and the Wachowskis were not attached. Some say that this was pressure by Warner Brothers to get the Wachowskis to return to the franchise to make another film. Because if they didn't, Warner Brothers would have given what they created, their baby, to somebody else. But as time went on, Lana Wachowski decided to come back. Her sister Lily did not. She wanted to go a different direction in her life. The reason Lana came back was because her parents had passed away and a close friend. She had this vision for the Matrix Resurrections that she couldn't get out of her head, and she wanted to make. So she gave in. She came back and made the Matrix 4 for Warner Brothers. And the reason things get a little bit messy is because people think that Lana Wachowski sabotaged her own movie. She deliberately made a bad Matrix movie so the franchise could die. So Warner Brothers could never ever make another Matrix movie and put it into theaters, because it wouldn't be financially viable, because the last one, Resurrections, did not perform well at all. But actually, it's Warner Brothers who sabotaged their own movie, not the creator, not the artist. The artist, Lana Wachowski, predicted this herself. She felt the pressure from Warner Brothers to come back. She even put it into The Matrix Resurrections. She was Thomas Anderson. Smith, I'm guessing, was Lily Wachowski, her sister or her agent, the person telling her, look, if you don't go back, they're going to do it with or without you. And actually, funny enough, in the film, the analyst works for a group known as the Suits. The Warner Brothers Suits? Very meta. Very, very meta in terms of what the movie was telling us, and now what's happening in real life. There is a lawsuit going on between Warner Brothers and one of the co-financiers known as Village Roadshow. And the reason that this is happening is because with all movies, it's not the studio that pays the entire budget. If you look at Godzilla vs. Kong, yes, the distributor was Warner Brothers, but it was backed by Legendary. Legendary paid for 75% of the budget. So when Warner Brothers put the HBO Max plan out there, the day and date release, where movies would hit theaters and HBO Max on the same day, because of their reasoning was, it's a pandemic. Legendary were pissed off, and so were many of the actors, producers, directors of all these movies, because their film that they had made for theatres exclusively was now being put onto a streaming service and was also being weakened in terms of what box office it could make. Godzilla vs. Kong did well, Dune did well, but films like The Suicide Squad did not. So it was very, very much a random thing in terms of what films did well or not. You couldn't really guess it. But then you look at The Matrix Resurrections, this massive IP that was originally supposed to come out in 2022, but Warner Brothers brought it forward to 2021 to be a part of their day and date release for HBO Max. Keanu Reeves was actually very pissed off at this, and the reports about him being pissed off because he was going to be out of money, I don't think are exactly true, because Keanu Reeves for me doesn't seem like the type of guy that goes around with a massive ego in terms of money. I think that he was protecting his cast, he was protecting his family in terms of the Wachowskis, who he cares for so much. He was protecting the integrity of the Matrix franchise and IP because it was supposed to be in theaters. But Warner Brothers pushed ahead. They had paid their talent off. They had paid their actors, the directors, some compensation in terms of, look, this is how it's going to happen, but we'll pay you some money for you to shut up, basically. Denis Villeneuve, the director of Dune, came out openly and disagreed with the decision by Warner Bros. In terms of the day and date release. Christopher Nolan did the exact same thing, the director of the Dark Knight trilogy, the director of Dunkirk, Interstellar, Tenet. And what did he do? He left Warner Bros. And joined Universal. Warner Bros. Went and they made this decision without even contacting its actors, its writers, its directors. And this automatically meant that they had been disrespectful to their creators. And it automatically meant that these movies wouldn't make the money that they were supposed to because they were hitting streaming on the exact same day, which meant piracy went up like crazy. Movies like The Suicide Squad and The Matrix Resurrections were hurt because a HD copy was available online to sit at home and watch. And then to make things absolutely worse, Warner Brothers brought The Matrix Resurrections to 2021 and placed it a week after the release of Spider-Man No Way Home, which was a theatrically released film. No streaming service there, and that movie right now is well into the billion mark, and that film was absolutely massive in terms of it brought back generations of Spider-Man fans, from Tobey Maguire to Andrew Garfield to now Tom Holland. Warner Brothers absolutely sabotaged their own movie because they said that they had to do this because of the pandemic. But movies like Free Guy, movies like Spider-Man No Way Home, who had only appeared in theaters first on day one, had blown up the box office, while Warner Brothers and their movies was very, this one might do well, this one didn't do well. It's hard to judge. So that's what I think Keanu Reeves was doing. He was protecting the integrity of the franchise, of his family. But what's happening right now is one of the co-financers of The Matrix Resurrections is suing Warner Brothers because they think that Warner Brothers deliberately sabotaged the Matrix franchise and now have decreased the value of the IP. The reason a co-financer like Village Roadshow is pissed off at Warner Brothers is because their contract says that they make profit off the theatrical release of the movie. So Village Roadshow, they help with the budget, they help finance The Matrix Resurrections, thinking that this is a huge IP. We've worked with Warner Brothers for years, and they have so, and I'll go through 91 movies that they co-finance that Warner Brothers is trying to take. But with the film appearing on HBO Max the exact same day, Village Roadshow receive absolutely nothing for that because it's not in the contract. What was in the contract was a theatrical release. And also, Village Roadshow received zero for The Matrix Resurrections at the box office as well, because they can't afford to pay for the rights of the Matrix franchise. They are co-owners of it right now. But with the decision of putting movies in theaters and on streaming the same day, that meant that the money that was coming into Village Roadshow had decreased dramatically, hugely. So they can't even pay for the co-rights of the Matrix franchise anymore. That's why they're suing Warner Brothers. And now Warner Brothers are coming back at Village Roadshow and saying, we have a contract. You're not meeting your contract obligation. You're not paying for the Matrix franchise. So that's a breach of contract. So that means if you can't pay, we get full ownership of the Matrix IP. That's what Warner Brothers is doing. And not just to the Matrix Resurrections, but nearly 100 films. And with Warner Brothers deciding to make series instead of movies, this means that Village Roadshow receive nothing as well. It's absolutely crazy. And I've talked about having a HBO Max Matrix series on the channel. I think it would be absolutely amazing to watch. Give time for this universe to breed. But that's deliberate from Warner Brothers. They want to make series about these movies. Because for one, there's less box office risk. When you put a movie out, it's hard to know whether it's going to do well or not. Sometimes you have flops, sometimes you have huge hits. It's hard to know. But if you put it onto a streaming service, it makes people subscribe. That's a monthly subscription. So people are paying their, $10, $15 a month to subscribe to HBO Max. And that's what HBO Max want to do. That's what Warner Brothers want to do. They want this income of it happening every month. This flow of cash that will never be altered because it's not the box office. It's not as risky. Netflix has been famous for this. I guarantee you, if you open up your Netflix right now, you will see hundreds of movies and shows that you've never heard of before. Because it's a risky game for Netflix as well, but the risk isn't as high. Because what they do is, every single week, they put out new movies, new shows. Some hit like Squid Game. Some don't. Some don't make an impact at all. But they have this constant flow of content. So this makes people stay subscribed. Oh, what do I watch on Netflix? Oh, there's a brand new show coming. Oh, with Ryan Reynolds. Oh, I'll watch that next week. What's coming the week after? Oh, there's a movie with The Rock. Cool. That's how they keep you subscribed. That's what HBO Max want. They want this constant flow of subscribers and content for those subscribers so they stay subscribed. Can you imagine if this week they had a Matrix show and next week they had whatever else, a DC show like they do with Peacemaker? They're pushing out these co-financers so they can have full ownership of these movies and shows. And ultimately, pushing out the Wachowskis. Because why do you need the visionaries that made the Matrix franchise? We're not putting it out in theaters anymore. We've got a streaming service. We can get somebody else in. So they're putting pressure and they're pushing out their talent all of the time and their financiers. And it backfired hugely on them in 2021 in terms of finances. But did it? In terms of box office, yes. But with the pandemic, after speeding everything up, studios have realised box office isn't the only way to make money. Streaming service, games. And yes, you will still have your theatrical movies, but the risk for the studios will be very little because the movies that you get to see in theaters will be superheroes, huge IPs, franchises with pre-existing fan bases. Just in the last year, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Scream 5, Spider-Man No Way Home. This upcoming year, The Batman, Doctor Strange 2, Aquaman, Flash, Avatar. There will be less indie movies in theaters and they will hit streaming services. And the same with these shows. This is the way that Hollywood is going. So that begs the question, will there be less creativity in theaters? Martin Scorsese said that Marvel movies are theme parks. He's not that wrong. Even though I enjoy those movies, they're spectacles. They're a good time for 2 hours. Popcorn-driven movies. Some aren't, of course, but a lot are. But it brings me back to the Matrix franchise, towards Warner Brothers and Village Roadshow. This article came out a week ago, saying that Village Roadshow sues Warner Brothers over Matrix Resurrections release on HBO Max. That was a week ago. And last night, while I was prepping this video, Warner Brothers clapped back, and we'll talk about that as well. But this article comes from Variety. Village Roadshow sued Warner Brothers on Monday, alleging that the studio sabotaged the theatrical release of The Matrix Resurrections in order to drive subscribers to HBO Max. The suit stems from Warner Brothers controversial move to release its entire 2021 theatrical slate simultaneously on its streaming service, including Dune, The Suicide Squad, and King Richard. The studio ended up paying out millions of dollars to profit participants to make up for lost box office revenue. Village Roadshow has a long-standing co-financing arrangement with the studio, which has included films like The Matrix trilogy, Joker, and the Oceans series. The suit alleges that Warner Brothers did not consult with or notify Village Roadshow before opting to put The Matrix Resurrections, the fourth installment in the franchise, on HBO Max. The film grossed just $148 million at the box office to date, a fraction of the gross reaped by the three earlier films. The suit accuses Warner Brothers of deliberately harming the film's box office to prop up HBO Max, at the expense of the future viability of the franchise. Warner Brothers' strategy not only ensured that The Matrix Resurrections would be a bust at the box office, but it also inflicted serious harm to the entire Matrix franchise, the suit alleges. There can be no doubt that the abysmal theatrical box office sales figures from The Matrix Resurrections dilute the value of this tentpole franchise, as a film's lack of profitability generally prevents studios from investing in additional sequels and derivative films in the near term. That's what I mean. The value of Matrix after this day and date release has decreased. So do you put out another film in theaters for it to bomb? No. We have a streaming service. That's what Warner Brothers are trying to do. Village Roadshow also argues that the simultaneous release also increased piracy, further cutting into the film's revenue potential. The suit states that Warner Brothers made acceptable accommodations with the film's stars Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, and with director Lana Wachowski. The suit also states that Warner Brothers came to terms with Legendary, the co-financer of Dune, but shut down negotiations with one of its longest-term relationships, that is, with Village Roadshow. To date, Village Roadshow has received nothing from the HBO Max release of The Matrix Resurrections, the suit states. How crazy is that? They made up with Legendary. They paid them off or whatever, and they gave nothing to Village Roadshow from the release of Resurrections. Village Roadshow notes that Warner Brothers delayed some of its own projects, which they completely own, like The Batman and Black Adam, into 2022, and will be giving them exclusive theatrical releases. The suit also cites the success of the exclusive theatrical release of Sony and Disney's Spider-Man No Way Home, arguing that Warner Brothers' simultaneous release strategy was not necessary and wasn't pushed on them by the pandemic. The suit also states that due to the poor box office results, Village Roadshow cannot make its contractually obligated payment to Warner Brothers, putting the company at risk of losing its rights to the film. The suit alleges that Warner Brothers has also been seeking to deprive the company of its rights to other films, including Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Edge of Tomorrow. So Warner Brothers are trying to take the rights not only of the Matrix franchise, but these other franchises as well, these other huge IPs. In a statement, Warner Brothers said that it has brought an arbitration case against Village Roadshow. This is a frivolous attempt by Village Roadshow to avoid their contractual commitment to participate in the arbitration that we commenced against them last week, the studio said. We have no doubt that this case will be resolved in our favour. Village Roadshow is seeking a declaration from the court that Warner Brothers breached its agreement. The company argues that its arbitration agreement does not preclude Village Roadshow from seeking non-monetary relief in court. Crazy stuff. Absolutely crazy. Warner Brothers basically are saying that they do not fear Village Roadshow in terms of what the contracts say, and that Village Roadshow is the one who are not living up to their contract. And you're probably saying, why didn't Village Roadshow sue them when the day and date was first announced? Maybe they should have. But they probably looked at movies like Godzilla vs. Kong and Dune making good box office, and they probably thought that The Matrix Resurrections would do the same and not be a massive flop. But Warner Brothers paid off its stars, its directors, its co-financers in terms of Legendary, patched things up there with them, but just completely ignored Village Roadshow and put The Matrix Resurrections in the same week as Spider-Man No Way Home. To me, that sounds like sabotage. The story doesn't end there, because last night through the Hollywood Report we got an update about all of this with the headline: Village Roadshow widens legal fight with Warner Brothers over film sequels remix. This is crazy. Village Roadshow seeks an order allowing it to co-invest and co-own projects based on movies it shares the rights to, and to prevent the studio from further breaching their contract to promote HBO Max. So basically, the movies that they co-own with Warner Brothers, they don't want them to be TV shows at all or put onto a streaming service. They want them to be theatrical only, and Village Roadshow now want to co-produce and co-own them all, and the contract cannot be broken ever again. Village Roadshow upped its legal salvo against Warner Brothers on Monday, claiming in court documents that the major studio is shutting it out from being a co-owner and financial partner on dozens of projects that are being developed based on movies that they share the rights to, in order to boost the value of its parent company's streamer HBO Max. Warner Brothers' admission leaves no doubt that its coercive conduct is a continuing, thinly veiled effort to eliminate Village Roadshow's rights going forward, so that it can keep for itself viable derivative rights to tentpole films and use those films and future creative derivative products arising from those films to steer would-be theatregoers to HBO Max, thereby gaining billions in enterprise value, states the Village Roadshow filing. In a strongly worded statement defending its business strategy, Warner Brothers had harsh words for Village Roadshow for taking the feud out of arbitration. Village's actions have been duplicitous, and this dispute is equally contrived. Village was happy to have their name on the credits of the film, travelled to the world premiere in San Francisco, and held themselves out to the media as producers on the film. But they now have reneged on their contractual obligation to pay their share of the cost of the film, stated Warner Brothers in its retort. Warner Brothers added, "It is notable that throughout 2021 we reached mutually acceptable agreements on films in the 2021 slate to provide additional compensation to talent and our partners in light of our day and date release strategy during the COVID-19 pandemic. The only exception was Village, which refused to honour its commitment to pay their share of production costs, rejecting the opportunity we offered to de-risk them from financial underperformance. Instead, Village wanted to enjoy the benefit of publicly holding themselves out as co-owners and producers while preserving a free look at the ultimate outcome of the film performance without any financial investment on their part. This is not how we conduct business, certainly not with trusted partners." Diana Torres, representing Village Roadshow, responded that Warner Brothers' statement is not only untrue, it seeks to deflect attention from the core issues. Village Roadshow paid Warner Brothers $4.5 billion to produce and distribute 91 films, she said in a statement. The complaint details a pattern of calculated conduct by Warner Brothers designed to eviscerate Village Roadshow's rights to the derivative works from those films. As set forward in our application filed this morning, Warner Brothers is in active development of several of those derivative works. The motion seeking to lift a stay on the case, which currently cannot proceed because it's in arbitration, further details the decay of the company's 25-year partnership that culminated in a lawsuit over the studio's decision to release Matrix Resurrections simultaneously on HBO Max and in theaters. During a discussion about television series based on Edge of Tomorrow, Warner Brothers allegedly made clear that going forward it will not allow Village Roadshow to co-finance and co-own any derivative works from any of the 91 films Village Roadshow co-owns. Despite the over $4.5 billion Village Roadshow has paid Warner Brothers to make and distribute those 91 films. So together Warner Brothers and Village Roadshow own The Matrix. But if Warner Brothers want to go and make a Matrix TV series, Village Roadshow don't get any profits. They don't get any say in it whatsoever. That's what Warner Brothers is doing with Edge of Tomorrow and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, all these other projects. So ultimately, Matrix could end up being a HBO Max movie or series because of this lawsuit with Village Roadshow until Village Roadshow give up the rights. Village Roadshow claimed it's being excluded from several prequels, sequels, or television shows that Warner Brothers has actively been developing based on shared rights, including Sherlock Holmes, the Ocean's series, Ready Player One, I Am Legend, Where the Wild Things Are, and Yes Man, among other movies. Warner Brothers has publicly stated its intent to release half its films on HBO Max rather than through an exclusive theatrical release, and has indicated to Village Roadshow that at least some of those it intends to release initially on HBO Max are derivative works of Village Roadshow films, writes Village Roadshow attorney Mark Holzker. The Hollywood Reporter reached out to an attorney who was not involved in the case, and he had this to say. Studios generally have broad discretion on when to move forward with projects based on factors like creative choices and the market for certain content. It gets trickier, he said, when decisions are made in bad faith. Warner doesn't have to consider any particular project. They retain ability to say, we won't do an Edge of Tomorrow series, he said. It's less clear that they can make that decision based solely on the basis that Village Roadshow won't give up its rights. Village Roadshow seeks an order allowing it to co-invest and co-own projects based on movies it shares the rights to with Warner Brothers, and to prevent the studio from further breaching their contract to promote HBO Max. Warner Brothers will likely try to keep the case in arbitration, while Village Roadshow argues that it has a case to pursue this further. Okay, so that's everything broken down for you guys. The lawsuit between Warner Brothers and Village Roadshow in terms of the day and date release of The Matrix Resurrections. But this goes even deeper than The Matrix, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Edge of Tomorrow, plus the 91 projects that Warner Brothers and Village Roadshow co-own together. Warner Brothers argue that they can make a show or a streaming movie about any of those 91 movies and don't have to pay Village Roadshow because it's not in the contract in terms of theatrical releases only. And also Warner Brothers is pushing Village Roadshow into a corner, saying, look, it's not our problem that you don't have profit from the box office of 2021, and during the pandemic you still have to pay because it's in your contract, and if you don't pay you will lose the rights to The Matrix, to Edge of Tomorrow, and the 90 other movies that we co-own together. So this is getting very, very messy, and even Warner Brothers tried to say, look, they didn't give us anything for The Matrix Resurrections. They didn't even finance the movie at all. But they went to the premiere, they acted like they were the big shots with the movie, and now Village Roadshow are suing us because we didn't give them any money, even though they didn't finance The Matrix Resurrections at all. It's hard to know what's going on with this whole thing. There's two different stories being depicted. Village Roadshow have said, we gave you $4.5 billion to finance movies. 91 movies. And this is how you treat us now? This story is going to continue to develop, so keep posted on the channel. I will cover it all. But in terms of Warner Brothers sabotaging their own movie to gain full ownership rights, if everything pans out the way that they wanted to, they will have full ownership of the Matrix franchise. They don't have to worry about the Wachowskis because they can go to HBO Max, make a movie or a show there. They don't have to worry about Village Roadshow because they'll be gone. They can't pay the rights for the Matrix franchise. it's going to get very, very interesting. The Wachowskis will always have producing credit. Their name will always be on The Matrix because they created it. But in terms of Lana Wachowski protecting the thing that her and her sister created, their baby, the chances are very, very slim right now going forward. Big time. We'll have to see how it all pans out. But guys, what's your thoughts on all of this? Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? Where do you see this ending? Will Warner Brothers get what they wanted, which is the full ownership of the Matrix franchise to do whatever they want in terms of putting content on HBO Max? Or will Village Roadshow actually win this, get co-finance, get co-ownership, and get what they want in terms of having the movies that they own being theatrical only, because that's the game they are in. It's cinema, not streaming. And what happens with Wachowskis and the Matrix franchise going forward? Let me know below. Thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.